Every now and again, my wife and I go through a spell of winding each other up through practical jokes, playing tricks on each other, trying to stitch each other deliberately up, like a couple of teenagers basically. This time she has got me because she has volunteered me to take part. This all happened while I was away in Azerbaijan. She's volunteered me to produce and show for the Scarecrow Festival in our little village this weekend, my version of Mr. Bean. Now the kids are obviously very excited about this. I've now got no choice but to come up with something. I've got now 2 days or a day and a half left to do it. Found a bit of wood down the bottom of my garden. I'm going to make Mr. Bean's car. Let's see how it goes. Other things that Claire and I have done to utterly stitch each other up are things like I've signed her up for the Parent-Teacher Association, for example, at school without her knowing. Put her on the class representatives list, sign her up for a class cake sale, that kind of thing. She utterly hates it, she hates doing that kind of thing, but she's very good at getting me back. And that's where we are right now. Now, in F1 news today, F1 itself have come out and released an actual statement about the potential new Grand Prix in downtown Miami as soon as October of next year, 2019. First of all, that's a great place to have a race. We went there in Formula E, and it's a fantastic location. I would absolutely love it if that comes off. Secondly, I thought it was quite interesting that they've chosen to make a public announcement about it before the local government in Miami have even voted on whether the proposal will go anywhere. I mean, this vote potentially could just say it's not happening. And then, you know, Formula One have released this statement potentially for no reason. So I don't quite understand that. It seems a little bit strange that they've done that. But look, put that aside, how good would it be to be racing around the streets of Miami? That is how you start to build an American audience, by taking the racing to the people, like Formula E is doing, putting it in the heart of a city where people are already. They don't have to travel anywhere, they don't have to go out of town to a great big racetrack. It'll be there on their doorsteps. And because it's taking over a city, and a major city like Miami, it'll make the news. You know, people will be talking about this. You will not escape the fact that there is a Grand Prix going on in Miami when it happens, if and when it happens. So I think that's brilliant news. That was just Pharrell playing with my camera again. I'm quite pleased so far. Just need to get a couple of cans of spray paint and we're laughing. Now the idea with this is that everybody in the village makes a scarecrow centred around a theme. This year's theme is British. So we wanted to find somebody British. So my wife, instead of choosing, you know, Damon Hill, who happens to live in the same village as me, would have been perfect for this. Instead of choosing Lewis Hamilton, right up my street, you know, racing driver, she put me down for Mr. Bean. Look at that. I'm pretty pleased. So a little bit of spray paint, and then making some kind of mannequin-based scarecrow that's going to sit inside the window on a seat in the driver's seat. I think it'll be perfect. And she thought she'd stitch me up. when Liberty turned up in Formula One to run this sport of ours, one of the very first things that one of the very first things that they said that they were going to do get off. One of the very first things they said they were going to do was put some destination cities in the US on the calendar. They wanted more. Sit down. This isn't going to work. Okay, so one of the first things Liberty said they wanted to do was add destination cities in the US to the Formula One calendar. They wanted more races in America, and they wanted those races to be places that would take the racing to the people. Cities and destinations where people would go there, would want to go there for a great weekend and have the bonus of having a Grand Prix. A place that already has some kind of tourist attraction or some kind of attraction, you know, standalone attraction. Places like New York clearly are one of those. Vegas was one of those, and Miami was another one that was originally mentioned on that list. And I can see all the good reasons for going to Miami. I think it's a great city. It has everything that Formula One is associated with or linked with. It has, you know, glamour. It has glitz. It has some kind of racing heritage and history. It has sunshine, lots of it, beaches, nightlife, pretty much everything you'd want from a Grand Prix weekend is already there in Miami. And if you take the racing to it, it completes the list. People always say to me, you know, what's the favourite race on the calendar that we go to? And every time I think about it, I think about places, I said this I think the other day, I think about places that are in city centres. And specifically, and even, you know, the very best ones are cities which are on the coast. So cities that have beaches, places like Monaco, like Barcelona, Singapore, these places that are, as I said, destination cities that mean you can go to the racetrack in the day, but in the evening, as a fan, or whether you're working in the sport, you can come away from either work or you can come away from your day at the track and you can be straight into the city within minutes, enjoying the nightlife and everything else that goes along with it. And that's what Formula One really, really needs. Places like Silverstone, and don't get me wrong, I'm a huge, huge fan and supporter of Silverstone. Amazing track. But it's out in the middle of nowhere. And if you want people to come not only to your racetrack, but you want them to come to your country for a race, you want them to travel quite a long way to come to a race, nowadays you kind of got to give them a little bit more than just the race. And we see places like Singapore putting on big events. We saw it even in Baku with Dua Lipa was there, Jamiroquai and Christina Aguilera are all there performing in the evenings all around the event of the Grand Prix. So if you can do that in more spectacular, more glamorous, more well-known cities, and particularly if you want to try and start increasing the audience level in the States, then places like Miami are absolutely perfect. I hope this one gets across the line. Now, one of the things I mentioned earlier, this announcement from FOM, or from Formula One, is really just an announcement that the idea of having a race in Miami, downtown Miami, has been added to the agenda of an upcoming meeting from the Miami City Commission, or the local kind of authority. It's literally been put onto the agenda to be discussed as to whether it's even going to be a possibility. So we're at the very early stages yet. And Miami, notoriously, the people of Miami are notoriously, how do we put this, not necessarily the most understanding of outside events, of noise and of disruption. There are constantly, if you ever look into it, there are constantly people in Miami, you know, groups, local resident groups, desperately trying to get nightclubs shut down or to get, you know, gigs shut down, musical gigs shut down. When Formula E went there back in 2015, which was a great event, by the way, there was there was some disruption from the local community who weren't particularly pleased that we were shutting down their city, and Formula E did it for literally just a day or so. There will be lots of barriers to overcome to make this happen. Formula One, of course, has to shut the place down for much longer. It needs a much longer circuit than the one that the Formula E used there. You know, the whole infrastructure is much bigger. The sheer numbers of people that are coming into town, the numbers of teams, all much bigger. But the fact that Formula E hosted an event there and it was successful, I think at least sets some precedent, and hopefully it will go some way to making this happen. Look, this is a great way to start drawing America into Formula One by taking Formula One to America and slamming it right in their faces on the doorstep on the doorstep of the people of Miami. Because when the people of Miami see it, the whole of America will see it. I really hope this one happens. I hope it gets across the line. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I know. Yes, I know. Wait, no.
So there were rumours in Baku in Azerbaijan that all of the kit, all of the infrastructure, the fences, the barricades, the kind of temporary walling, some of the paddock buildings, the containers, the bridges over the circuit, all that kind of infrastructure, there were lots of rumours that that had just been sold over the course of that weekend, or a deal had been done to sell all that kit to Miami ahead of this proposed race. That was the first that I really heard of discussions properly going on with Miami about a race. But it sparked a bunch of rumours that actually it might be the last time we go to Baku. So Baku have, you know, quashed that rumour. Actually, what the deal is with all of this temporary equipment for lots of these street-type circuits is that actually it gets shared between them and it gets shipped from one to the other. So some of it will be heading on to somewhere like Singapore or you know, one of the races towards the end of the year. So it's not that having done a deal with another city or another country means that Baku will end. Baku is tied into a contract. They fully expect to fulfill that contract, and we all look forward to going back. But it was the first little sign, I guess, that the Miami talks were something serious. And obviously what's come out since has backed that up. So I think the feeling in the paddock when these rumours started to emerge was that actually that's great news. That's really great news for Formula One. It's great news for Formula One in America. It's great news for all of us who work in the sport, because ultimately we'd all love to go to Miami. And for fans of the sport, I think that will also, you know, they'll also be winners, because it'll be a great place visually. It's a great spectacle to watch on TV. The colours and the backdrop of Miami is just great. For the people of Miami and the people of America, they got another option in terms of wanting to go and get involved in Formula One in the future, and that has to be good news. Tell you what else is good news. Look how the kids have got on. Doesn't it look good? So now I've just got to make a scarecrow of Mr. Bean to sit in the driver's seat. Easy.